Hey friends, welcome. This is Danny Morel with another edition of the Real Estate Sales Show. This is episode number 10. Exciting times, my friends. This is literally a month and 2 weeks that the show has opened, and we are just past 10,000 downloads. If you haven't had a chance, I want to remind you, episode 9, I'll be honest, I didn't even get a chance to market it, and 1,000 people had already listened to the show, and it's getting rave reviews with my great friend, and actually our great friend, Mr. Joe DeRafael. And today I have one of the titans, and I use that word. You know, Titans is used to explain people like Rockefeller, right? This is one of the titans of the industry. This is one of these people that I look up to, admire, and respect simply because of accomplishments, work ethic, passion, integrity, and just the virtues of a strong business and family man. I've got my great friend, Mr. Greg Harrelson, joining us today. Greg, say hello, please.
Hey, hello everybody, man, and thank you for having me. I'm excited. Excited just to connect with you and see what comes out of both of us. You know,
I think it's going to be fantastic, Greg.
Yeah.
You know, one of the great things about this interview is that you're one of those rare people that actually is not only extremely coachable, but then actually does what the coach or the mentor says to do. And as a result, you get to live a life that most can only dream of. So I'd like to start from the basics, and I'd like to ask you a couple of questions before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. Is that fair?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Awesome. So Greg, tell me, how long in the business and what got you into the real estate business?
Okay, so I've actually been in the business around 22, maybe 23 years now, and I had an interesting start. So I wasn't doing so well in college, let's just say that, and so I was 20, my lower 20s, early 20s, and I was needing a real job. So my dad happened to be in real estate, and he had been in real estate maybe 4 years, and what I did is I came and worked for him as a part-time telemarketer for him. I actually would come into the office in the morning, make some prospecting calls for a couple hours, leave, go to college during the day, come back in the evening and do it all over again. And what ended up happening, about 6 months later, I started to see a few things. Number one, I was pretty good at being on the phones and setting appointments, and my dad was actually doing really well because he was taking those appointments and turning them into listings.
Right.
So again, I wasn't doing really good in school. I went to 5 schools in 5 years, and I wasn't even a junior yet, okay? And so obviously I wasn't doing so hot. So that was kind of my ticket where I said, wow, I think I might be good at this. And I unfortunately or fortunately decided, you know what, I'm going to stop here with college. I'm going to go full-time into real estate, and here we are today. So I started off as a part-time prospector.
You know, which was a blessing in disguise, Greg,
yes,
right?
Yes, it
right?
was. Yes.
And I want to, man, there's going to be so much that we talk about, but I want to dig into that because
yeah,
I think that maybe in like all of our industry, there's maybe 20% of the real estate salespeople, mortgage, real estate, title, escrow, you name it, that truly understand what we do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And the immense blessing we've had in our lives by being mentored by none other than Mike Ferry himself.
Absolutely.
And that name strikes fear in people. And it typically strikes fear in people because there's 2 ways of getting business. One is kind of waiting for it to come. And the other one is you go out and you make it happen. And so you obviously don't have an issue with generating business from prospecting. For those of our listeners that do, how could you explain to them the blessing that you had by getting into it right from the beginning, just starting to make phone calls?
Well, the reality is if you think about it, I would come into the office at 8 in the morning and I left at 10. Went to school, came back in around 6:30 and called till 8. So for the first 6 months, I never saw anybody in the office. I came in, nobody was there that early. I left, a few people were coming in. I came back, everyone was gone. So I actually never had, in the first 6 months, I never had any exposure to what most real estate agents do. Right. So I thought everyone did what I did, but they did it during the day when I couldn't be there. So I wasn't tainted in that way. In a way, I was kind of in this shell, and not being influenced by other, say, average or non-producers.
Right.
And I was told to do something, and I just did it because that was my job.
Awesome.
And then what I ended up, by the time 6 months, of that took place, I was getting results. So at that point, I surely wasn't going to change. I mean, I knew that was the way to move forward.
So time out here for a second. So 6 months in, you're coming Monday through Friday for 2 hours a day, first thing in the morning, correct?
Yeah.
You're getting on the phones. At that time, how old are you?
I'm 46 right now, so I'm probably 23, 24, about 23 probably.
Okay. And 6 months in, you start actually seeing results.
Yeah, I was getting, so what I was doing is, see, my results were in the beginning pretty quickly. I was getting appointments, or in the beginning I was generating leads, right?
Right.
And then I'd give the leads to my dad, and then my dad would come back and say, these leads are terrible, man. You need to do this, you need to do that. I'd go back, and then I started generating appointments. But I was excited just to generate leads. Mm-hmm. But then I realized that I got to qualify them better, and then I started generating appointments. And as soon as I started figuring out how to generate appointments, like real qualified appointments, and then I saw my dad getting the listings.
Right.
And he was making the money. Now, remember, I'm just like an hourly pay guy here.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I was licensed at that time. I was making an hourly pay, and I think that's it. Right. And I saw what was happening to his business. I said, I got to get involved. This is my ticket.
So first year in the business, how many deals did you do? Your first, licensed, I'm going for it, full time. How many deals?
So my dad, we worked together as a team for probably 4 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So when I first got in at that age, to say my first real year of business maybe was 24. Well, the trajectory we were on is my dad was doing about 48 transactions, I believe, when I started prospecting for him. The next year, the first full year of us working together, he went from 48 to approximately 90 transactions, and then we went into like 137, and then there was a point in time, the story's interesting with me and my dad, in between, say, the 90 and the 150, I actually met Mike Ferry. And because I hadn't met him yet. And when I met Mike Ferry and got into their coaching, then another light bulb went off, and I said, holy cow, we can really take this somewhere.
Right.
The challenge is I was committed to Mike Ferry, and my dad didn't know about Mike Ferry. He knew of him, but he wasn't committed because he wasn't in that environment. Right. And so that was when there was a switch where me and my dad had to make a decision, and the decision was either I was going to go off on my own and really do what I think I'm capable of doing,
right. Yeah.
Or I would have to take over, the operation, and he would kind of work. I don't want to say under me as in a disrespectful way, but let's just say I was going to take the lead.
Right.
And that's what ended up happening. And then we, ended up getting well over 400 transactions. Holy. So, we were doing big business, and it was all self-generation. It was all generating.
Okay. So time out. So Greg, people are going to... I feel like people have a hard time understanding what I do and what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because they look and it's like, right? And yet here you're striking at that same chord right now. Here you are, you're saying that essentially you guys got to 400 transactions a year, all self-generated. Any money spent on marketing, or was it...
No, I mean, there was one time we had a billboard, but what we did is the only reason I even had a billboard is because we took it in trade on a commission from some guy that was having a hard time paying us, and he owned a billboard, or he was an executive at a billboard company. So we didn't, in essence, that's the only really time I did that type of stuff. And we may have done a real estate book ad back then when the internet wasn't that big. We're talking, 20 years ago. But no, we've never been big marketers. I really don't even have a marketing budget today built into my financials. We do it prospecting based.
So... best year ever, how many transactions did you close?
So December 31st, 2004 was what I would call my last year of being a real estate agent, like full-time real estate agent. I declared at that time I was going to be an entrepreneur and not a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Still staying in the real estate industry, obviously,
yeah.
But it just wasn't going to be my core revenue. And that year closed 484 transactions.
484 transactions, self-generated, prospecting based.
Yes.
That is monstrous, absolutely monstrous.
And I did have some people prospecting beside me.
You have to.
Obviously, I don't want anyone to, mistaken and believe that it was all just myself. No, I at that time I had assembled a team and had a buyer's agent and whatnot. But yes, we were out there hitting the phones every single day, and that was when I was making 60 contacts a day, and we didn't have auto dialers then.
Yeah.
This whole auto dialing thing, I tell you, it's the worst thing to happen to a real estate agent because people are getting on these auto dialers and they're getting lazy. Right. You ask somebody to manual dial and make 60 contacts a day, they'll freak out. They can't do it. They can do it, but their mind thinks that they cannot do it, therefore they don't. But you and I, that's how we cut our teeth.
Yeah, Greg, the same thing happened last week when I'm interviewing Joe D. There's too many angles to take here. So let's start with this angle right now. Okay?
Go for it.
Fundamental reason I got into the business and I opened my brokerage was flat out, I believe there was just like what's going on right now in the real estate industry is a travesty, is what I think. I believe that we're in the greatest country on planet Earth. I believe that we're in the greatest industry known to man. I believe that anything that we want to accomplish is accomplishable. And yet we have people that are just succumbing to mediocrity, and they're succumbing to mediocrity because they won't put in the time, they won't put in the energy that obviously you did as a 24-year-old young man because you knew no different, right?
That's right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I don't think we had as many options. There wasn't as many people coming at us telling us, hey, here's a shortcut, here's a path of least resistance, here's a shortcut on how you can get here and get there. We didn't have all that. It's the technology companies and marketing companies, they're getting so involved in our industry. And I'm not anti-technology. Let me tell you, I embrace everything I can. But I think what technology sometimes does is it makes us lazy. And that's what I see happening right now. People are figuring out, well, if I pay the money, then I can have this occur. I don't have to work.
Right.
What we were doing is we were more investing our sweat equity, and people are trying to invest their dollars.
Right.
And that's a big difference. So I don't think that we had as many distractions back then when we started.
So not as many distractions. And I guess the next obvious question is why do you think at the core, at the root of the problem, is it that we as an industry are not only so blinded by these distractions, but we're like looking for more distractions right now, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think they're doing a good job selling it. Mm-hmm. The people that are distracting us right now are doing a fantastic job on selling it. They're using terms like return on your investment and ROI and all these different things. And I think the bottom line is when you self-generate, when you're out there self-generating and you're making an outbound phone call, if they say no, you're going to feel rejected. If they say yes, you're going to feel accepted. But if you go in and you buy a technology or you buy leads and people are calling you, then you are not getting rejection because they're already calling you. When they call you and you get a new lead, it's almost like they've already kind of accepted you.
Right.
And so I think people are finding this technology and all these distractions and subconsciously. I don't think they consciously know this, but I think people are gravitating towards these things because they think they can do a lot of deals and they can also avoid rejection. I ultimately think that's why people don't go out there and prospect.
And essentially, rejection equals massive pain to people.
Yes.
And what they want to do is try to avoid that pain at all costs.
Yes.
So would you say that if we dissect this a step further and if we truly want to help our listeners, because that's why I'm doing this, man. I'm just so freaking passionate about sharing people like yourself and the principles that have helped me become who I am. Would you say, and this is going to get straight to the point here, would you say that the minute someone decides to acknowledge, accept, and move past the rejection, that they can start living the life that they're destined to live?
100%. 100%. And I think what happens is and we don't even have to go as far as accepting rejection. I think rejection doesn't even exist. People are not rejecting us. People are rejecting the proposal. So when we're getting a rejection, it really has nothing to do with me. It just has to do with maybe the proposal doesn't fit their needs, their goals, or their desires at that moment. So we need to understand that it's not us that they're accepting or rejecting. It's the transaction, it's the strategy. And that is something we can easily change. If it was us, we're harder as people to change than it is to change a strategy or a proposal or a presentation. And I think we need to disassociate ourselves with that term rejection. They're not rejecting you, and they're not accepting you. You're doing nothing more than just delivering information, and they're either going to move forward with that information or they're not.
Right.
If me and you and everyone listening, we are constantly receiving information and proposals and deciding not to do things. But that doesn't mean we're rejecting everyone that we don't do business with. And the same thing's happening to you. You're not being rejected, but it's the fear of rejection.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Greg, I try to preach this as much as I can, that your outer world is a direct reflection of your inner world. And when I say that, I mean your finances, your happiness, your joy, your relationships, everything is a direct reflection of what's going on in here and in here. Right?
Yes.
And in order to be able to have the audacity to say things like you have to accept that no one's rejecting you, that means that you have to have emotional security, and you have to be like pretty secure with who you are at the core of your being. Sure. And in the little bit that I'm speaking to you, I can see that you get neither high nor low. You're just there. You're just Greg plugging away. How did you learn that?
How did I learn that? Through a lot of the coaching, so many of my coaches, through Mike Ferry and, different things that I've done, Tony Robbins, and just different things like that. I think I've always heard the message to keep the emotions between the lines, that, in the end, everything becomes a law of averages. And if I start to measure the result of today's call, or the number or today's number of contacts, or the number that I do this week, and I start to get a high and a low because of what I did today, that's completely useless.
Right.
Because it's what I do consistently over time that I need to measure. So I just really focus on just keeping everything kind of between the lines. Especially in business.
Right.
To me, it's all going to average out over time. I need to just focus on what is the process, what are the numbers that I'm supposed to hit, and commit to that process, and do not be attached to the result. The result is going to happen in spite of me.
Wow.
It's just a process.
I love it. The result is going to happen in spite of me. These are things that obviously I apply. Hearing it that way is just like, I don't know. I show up every day. I do my best, and I don't really get attached to what anybody thinks or what happens, or if I make a sale or if I don't. I know over a long period of time, though, it is going to happen.
Absolutely.
I love it. So here's a question. You did mention the word coaching, and you did mention the phrase, a lot of coaching.
Yes.
And when I speak to our listeners and to our sales force, I tell them that I personally have never accomplished anything by myself. I have a fitness coach, a business coach, a CEO coach. I now have a freaking Instagram coach. I have a money management coach. I am to the point where I have the ego in check enough to know that I don't know anything. But yet there's a lot of powerful people out there that do. And if I can just kind of like submit myself to the principle of learning, that I can get where I want to be a lot faster.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a hard time with this because they attach coaching to money and cost. So first, how much would you say over your career that you've invested into coaching and seminars, etc.? Let's start there.
Wow. So it's got to be 400,000, 500,000. I mean, I have been in Mike Ferry coaching for probably 19 years, and there's never been one day in 19 years that I have been out of the Mike Ferry coaching system. There's been times where I've been paying the Mike Ferry organization to coach me, and I had a Tony Robbins coach simultaneously
at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time. I mean, there's been times where I've had a coach, Stu Middleman, to help me with my first marathon, and Mike Ferry, and going to a Tony Robbins seminar.
Right.
So, I mean, there's times where I've had multiple coaches at one time, but there's never been a day in 19 years that I have not had a coach. Not one day. It's been on my in my financials. It's a bill that I pay every single month for 19 plus years. So, and you said some people think it's about coaching. So there's two ways to view coaching. You can actually look at coaching as an expense, or you can look at coaching as an investment. I do not look at coaching as an expense, because an expense is typically something that I don't get a financial return back. That's how I look at it.
Right.
But coaching, I get a financial return. I do get a return on my investment, and that's an investment. When you get a return on your investment, it's because you made an investment. It's not called ROE, return on expense. It's return on investment. So coaching is not an expense to me. It's an investment.
So just to kind of clarify this point, you literally just last weekend were in Florida at Unleash the Power Within. You happened to see my brother Anthony.
I did. I saw your brother.
Which I love. And I know that's not the first time you've been to that rodeo.
No.
How many times have you done this, just that program alone, Unleash the Power Within?
So I've done that program twice, and then I've done Business Mastery twice with Tony Robbins. So I'm repeating events, no question about it.
I love it. I love it. And yet there's people who have heard of these events for the last 10 years of the career, and they never go, and they don't go because a ticket to an event is going to cost you, to do it the right way, it's going to cost you at least $1,100, $1,200 to at least be anywhere close to the stage, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 I love it. This is too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question for you. Where are you today in your business? What was business like in 2015?
So 2015, I've switched my model, and basically I own real estate companies, and I coach them as if they're like my entire team. And we closed 1,650 transactions last year. So, my average per agent production, which is something to be proud about, is around 26, 27 right now. It is decreasing a little bit. It used to be over 30, but as I'm expanding aggressively, then naturally, it adjusts downward, and hopefully I can get that back up. But my agents are making, a lot of sales. They're making good money, and that's what I focus on. But yes, we closed over 1,600 transactions last year.
I love it. So I want to talk to you about this, Greg. This is a battle that I fight all the time, and it's quite honestly, no one here locally wants to hear it, because the quickest way to get past the rejection and the pain, and yet also be able to spike up your numbers and say that you sell a lot of houses, which satisfies immensely the ego, is to bring people on board.
Yes.
And it's like no one wants to put in the hard work. I actually had a gentleman that literally walked up to my front doors, Greg. This was a month ago, and says, "Well, Danny, I want to do what you do." And I felt like saying, "Well, son of a gun, you haven't paid the price that I've paid."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I need to clarify this, because right away what people do, again, people that aren't conscious of what this really looks like, is they'll go, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and build a team," right? How many years did you work and fight through and develop and master and go through the pain and learn and apply what it was like to be a powerful real estate salesperson before you started to do what you do now?
Wow. Well, I started doing what I do now in 1999, which, let me take that back. No, in 1999 is when I bought my company. Okay. But I still, at that point, I was still a real estate agent until 2004. So it was really 2004. So let's just say roughly 7 years before I made the decision that I was really going to be more of an entrepreneur and build out a team and focus on that team.
Okay, so now for clarification, however, there's a difference of 7 years doing 10 deals a year And
Yes.
7 years doing, how many were you doing?
Hundreds and hundreds. I mean, I was averaging. I mean, we ended up at 484, but I was, many, many years 300 plus.
Okay, so there's a difference there. There's a right, and it's like everybody wants to jump the gun.
Yes.
So what is it that they're missing, or what would you say to a listener right now that sees adding more people as the only option, where people like you and I say, no, you have more juice in you. You just got to be able to put in the freaking work.
Yeah. So what I would say is, I don't think most people are not putting enough time into mastering their craft. They're not becoming masters of it. It's not likely we're going to become masters in a year or 2 years. And so when the market's doing really good, then everyone feels good, and it's like, hey, let's join together. Why don't you be on my team? Yeah. But what happens is that's not sustainable in a declining market. It's not sustainable in a down market, because when the market starts changing and shifting, what's going to actually keep that team together is going to be when the team has confidence, knowing that the leader has actually done exactly what he's telling them to do. Yeah. In a hot, inclining market, an increasing market, you can get away without ever walking the walk. As long as you can talk the talk, it works right now. But when the going gets tough, it's going to be those who walk the walk that do the best. And we know that those who have walked the walk, they're going to be the ones that thrive in a down market. Those are the ones that actually increase their market share while everyone else is going out of business, but because they've mastered their trade. So people are jumping the gun because you don't have to be a master to make money in a good market. Right. You only have to be a master to make money in all markets. Yeah. So the true test will be all of these people that are assembling these teams. The true test is going to be when the market shifts, which could be sooner than people think.
Right. And by the way, what do you think about that? What do you think about the market, where we're at? I know it's difficult to forecast and pinpoint, but what are your thoughts?
My personal feeling is the market is already shifting.
Yeah.
I think across the board, of course, there's great markets that are still on the rise, but I do think across the board that there's a few key indicators that most people don't look at that exist in most markets, and that is average days on the market is going up. Now, if you're in a market right now and your average days on the market is 20 days and it goes up to 30 days, then you're probably saying, who cares? Things are still selling. No, here's why you should care. That's a 50% increase. You got to turn those numbers into percentages, and then when you start to look at the shifts from a percentage standpoint, then you have to start taking note. Inventory is increasing in most markets. Days on the market is increasing. The list to sales price ratio in a lot of markets is it's a gap that's broadening. What that means is that people are listing and having to come down more in negotiations. Those are all early indicators that something could change in the future. So I don't know what the market's really going to do, but I do know in most markets, if you look at those key indicators, you'll see that those numbers are shifting. I tend to believe that ends up leading to something else.
And so I'm a believer that when you run your business based off of concrete numbers,
yes,
then all you do is increase or manipulate the numbers, right, in order to get the desired result that you want.
Yeah.
For example, there could be a listener that's listening right now that goes home every single night at 5 o'clock. And then when that market shifts, that no longer becomes an option. That means that you have to maybe put in a little bit more time, or there could be an agent right now listening, or a lender, title rep, whatever, that is perfectly fine with not role playing and practicing every day. No problem. Well, when the market shifts, that no longer is an option. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes. I mean, here's another way to say it. My financial advisor told me this one time. He says, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. See them. So the consumer will allow themselves to work with people who may not have mastered their trade, because everything feels good and the market's going to sell it anyways. But when the market shifts, the consumer's no longer going to let their little nephew handle the
who just got his license,
because there's too much at risk. Right. So they start gravitating to the masters, to the true professionals. Yeah. So the consumer will actually ultimately decide who's going to do the business and who's not going to do the business. And since it costs the same to hire a true professional that's mastered their trade, they go with that because that's a form of risk reduction.
Okay, so let's get down to the basics here, Greg. I'm a listener right now, And this conversation is striking a chord.
Yes.
This conversation is like, oh my gosh, these guys are reals, right? This is for real, what they're talking about, right? And obviously the other underlying factor is the fact that people still feel the pain of what happened in 2006, 2007, 2008. So they don't want to go through that again. So if I'm an agent and I'm willing to say, just like a new agent that comes here and works for my brokerage or yours, because I got to tell you, in the country, I don't think there's anybody that does what we do like you. Like I know you do what we do, and they want to change their life, and they want to say, all right, you got my attention. I want to get prepared and I want to be ready. What are the 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever steps that someone needs to take today on a continuous basis to be prepared for when that shift comes?
So what I'm sharing with my people, the agents that are in my office, is like, because we need to start preparing for the next market while we're still experiencing this market. Right. It's just, no matter what, that's always going to be the case. So what I'm suggesting to them is, you've got to master the conversations. You've got to be better at your scripts. But scripts, a lot of people don't like that word. Scripts are nothing more than a conversation. Okay? Yeah. You have to master the conversation. You got to know it inside and out, upside down, in every which way. That's number one. And number two, you've got to create some sort of ritual. You've got to have some consistency. When are you going to start and when are you going to stop prospecting? You have to be generating your own business. It's too risky to rely on all these outsourced companies to generate your leads. What if they go out of business? And you got to understand, when this market shifts, if it does, when this market goes down, then the real estate agents are not going to have a large budget to spend on buying leads.
Right.
When their budget decreases, then the lead companies are going to have problems. Right. And so now a lot of those lead companies are going to go out of the business and not be able to provide leads. So where are you going to get your leads? It's going to come from self-generation. So what you want to do is, you want to start a ritual of self-generation right now. And it's simply master the conversations, prospect a certain amount of time every single day, have a contact goal, and measure your numbers and be detached. There's your process. It's as simple as that. It's know what to say and get on the phone and start saying it.
To as many people as possible.
To many people as possible, and the law of averages will play out, and you'll increase. You'll increase your business. You got to understand, the people who are feeling the pain, most people who are feeling the pain from the past downfall, were people who were not self-generating their own business. They were people that were relying on other people to provide leads. So that's the lesson. Do not rely on someone else to provide you leads. If you want to do it, that's fine, but don't let that be the sole source of you generating leads. I'm not saying cancel everything today. I'm saying hire yourself to generate leads today, in addition to whoever else you're hiring.
And why should people do that? I mean, I know that ultimately it's the most profitable activity you can do. It's probably not as leveraged as marketing is, and yet you will earn more and you will profit more as a business person when you're self-generating business. What are your thoughts about that?
I think you're accurate, and I think it's because it's predictable and duplicatable. And I'm going to add one more. It's predictable, duplicatable, and sustainable. So it's something that, like, no matter how the market is, all you have to do is adjust the number of people you talk to, and you can actually maintain or increase your business. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. When the market shifts, you just have to shift the number of contacts. You don't actually have to shift the results, the number of deals.
Right.
And so what happens through up markets and down markets, and there might be somebody today that's working one of these great buyer lead sources, and they're touting all over America how they're making 200, 300 sales a year. But that person might be doing that for 2 straight years or 3 straight years. Then the market shifts. They have no idea how to self-generate. If they're lucky enough to stay in the business, it'll take them 3 or 4 years to actually retrain themselves, and then they'll start doing 50, 60 transactions. So then when you take that 5-year spell of time and you take what they did in their high time and what they did in their low time, they're going to average out lower than people like you and I are going to do if we just focus on one thing and be consistent. consistent with it,
Yep.
we'll get to the top a lot faster, and there won't be as much, it won't be a roller coaster ride.
So Greg, this is and by the way, this podcast is going to change lives. I'll tell you that. I could sense
That's what I want.
Yeah, I could sense it already. And an area where I think we struggle in, that I don't know if you've mastered it, but it seems like you've mastered it. It's an area that I know I personally struggled in, right? Is sticking to one thing. And what I mean by this is this. I learned the hard way, okay? And now I'm able to help people as a result of that. But another thing that I see so many agents do is underappreciate the business. Meaning we tend to focus on like the negative side of the business. Oh my God, I got to work with these clients. And oh my God, they're a pain in the butt. And where on God's green earth are you going to find another place to earn $250,000, $500,000, $750,000 a year without a college education, you know?
Yeah.
And you have seemed to just stay in the game. Even though it's shifted a little bit, you're still in the game.
Yes.
What would you say to people? And I'm sure you see this, that all of a sudden they do good and then they're like superstars in their own mind.
Yeah. Well, so I got involved with coaching early on, and I was coachable. I mean, I listened to the message. I applied the message. The result occurred. Okay. That was all I needed. I didn't have to be tempted by all these other things. And anytime this shiny object came into my life and says, this is the direction you need to go in, well, then I would look at it and I would investigate it. And then I'd find all these people who were doing it and so-called doing it good. And then I realized that maybe sometimes they were doing a lot of deals, but their profitability was terrible.
Yeah.
So I just always investigated. I didn't just take it on face value because it looked good. And when I compared all those shiny objects to what I was doing, I said there's nothing better than what I'm currently doing right now. And why risk? You know, I didn't want to take the risk because this was something that I could control.
Right.
Everything besides this, somebody else is controlling. They have their hand on the light switch. They can turn it off or turn it on at any time. I just, as a business person, felt like there's one thing that you should never relinquish control of, and that is lead generation to your company. You can outsource everything else, but if you outsource lead generation, or at least if you don't have control of a certain amount of your own lead generation, then you are at risk of somebody else, at somebody else's business plan. And I just, as a business person, I said that's too much risk. I don't want to do that.
Awesome answer.
And I've been afraid to not prospect.
Really?
I mean, it's like, to me, like, and that's just how I started in the business. But to me, I was taught at an early age that a day not prospecting is a day not worked. And I was brought up, with a father that he believed in working hard, not working smart. Okay, I believe in working smart and working hard, as in good work ethic, but he was like old-timey, you got to work hard, son, to forget the smart part, right? So that was embedded in my mind early on, and working hard is something that I knew I had to do.
Absolutely.
And so I just never stopped.
Greg, I've got to ask, just because I'm intrigued by this. I don't know if you know, but at 13, my dad basically wasn't around, and so when I hear stuff like this, like I admire and respect that gift that you had. And there might be people out there that are listening that feel the same way. Tell me about Dad, and tell me about some of the key lessons he taught you. I know you touched on it, but he obviously had a great influence on you.
He sure did. He really did. A couple things that about my dad that I think that he gave me. Number one, he says, always be transparent. Be transparent with your clients. Just never fudge. Never, tell people prices and things that are not accurate. And be courageous and tell them what you know that they don't want to hear. He told me that early on. Okay. The other gift was he brought me in and didn't tell me anything about the business and just said, make a bunch of calls, son.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was one of the greatest gifts. The other thing, though, that I really felt was interesting about my dad is we did have a conflict, and it was a point in time where I knew I had something in me, but at the same token, he had something in him too. And we had a conversation. I'll never forget. I said, Dad, one of two things is going to have to happen. Either I'm going to have to be the leader of this ship and take it where I want to, or we're going to have to exist in the same market as competitors. And I am a competitor. Mm-hmm. And what was just so admirable about my father, and maybe at the moment I said it, there was probably high egos at that moment. We were probably battling because we sure would fight. Mm-hmm. But when the dust settled, I think he realized it was time for him to trust me. I'd already hired Mike Ferry at that time, so I was involved in growth and bettering myself, and he was able to put his ego aside and say, now I'm going to be your number one support.
That's awesome.
And that was huge. That was really huge. But his work ethic, you got to get up in the morning, you got to be at the office at 7:30. Those are all things that he demanded of me. And if I didn't do them, there was a family issue.
Yeah,
which
love it.
which we know now falls in line with all the coaching that we've had.
Yeah.
I was very lucky on that from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Greg, I want to ask you, because we're 40 minutes in, and I want to be respectful of your time, obviously.
Sure.
And I know we're going to have a bunch of questions online, so I'm about to look. And by the way, for our listeners, if you don't know, follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/danny.morel.page, or on Instagram, just look for Danny Morel. And typically, I try to give enough notice when I have a powerful guest so that you can ask them questions. So as I start looking at these questions, is there anything that you feel like you really need to share with our listeners that could have a massive impact on them?
I think, here's one thing. And I was just telling this and sharing this with the agents in my office yesterday. I said, for those of you that are looking to break through of any sort, whether it's real estate or somewhere else in your life, this is going to apply to every single thing. If you want to break through, you got to understand that breakthroughs do not require you to change. Breakthroughs just require that you change some of your patterns. Okay? You have the ability to get everywhere you want, anywhere you want to get, but maybe the current patterns that you're actually on, that you're using, maybe the way that you prospect or the way that you're doing some things, maybe the patterns that you're following are not going to get you to where you want to go, but you can get you to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
So I want to just kind of let everyone off the hook and say, hey, you're perfect just the way you are. You can actually do it. You just need to adjust a few of your patterns, and next thing you know, you're going to break through.
Awesome. I love it. That was powerful. Powerful. So Greg, you ready for some questions?
Sure. Let's go for it.
All right. So I got a question here. And it is, let me see here. It says, Greg, what are the 3 characteristics? This is from a gentleman by the name of Fabian Gomez. What are the 3 characteristics you have on a daily basis that cause the success that you have? 3 characteristics. What would you say they are?
I would say that I get up early and get to the gym. That would be number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, Wait,
Greg, can you say that one again, please? Because people don't like that one, by the way.
Yeah, they just got off the call,
they tuned off, right?
So I get up early at around 4:15, and I'm in the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. The bottom line is this: Michael Jordan, whatever great legend you want to think of, they never showed up to the game at tip-off time. They always had a pregame routine. So one characteristic of a pregame routine for myself is I am in the gym, I'm generating energy, I'm getting my mindset right, and then I come into the office. I've already worked up a slight little sweat before I even got into the office. That's number 1.
Awesome.
The second thing I would say is that there's never a day that I am not generating business. So a day without generating is a day not worked. I don't care what you accomplish. In my mind, I think of myself as this. I wake up unemployed not by choice. It's not my choice. We're all going to default to unemployed the minute we wake up. But if we go to sleep unemployed, it's because we chose not to prospect. We chose not to generate. That's number 2. And the next one is to be completely detached. Is just, be detached of the result and attached to the process. Those are the things that come to my mind. Great question.
You know what's so funny though, Greg? And this speaks volumes about what it takes to really make it, those are the three that the people have the hardest time with.
Yeah.
They have the hardest time with, I don't understand it, with getting up early and, getting fired up, getting motivated, go for a walk, sweat, get some energy going, right? They have a hard time with getting on the phones and generating business. And then what was the third one again?
And then remain
detached. Yeah. Oh my God, everybody's attached.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's attached to anything. A client cancels an appointment, they're emotionally distraught. A client says no, a deal falls out, or whatever the case may be. Secondary question, if you could pinpoint something that could help them to get better at like those three, what would it be?
So, well, let's just take the attached, for instance.
Okay.
I was telling, again, this touches on a subject that we were talking about the other day in my office. I said, look, your goal should be to have 80 deals fall out. Because if you have 80 deals fall out, trust me, that means you're doing hundreds of deals.
Yeah.
So it's just a different way to look at it. If you call 40 people and only one person says yes, then that's you should celebrate that, but you could look at it this way. It takes 40 people to find one yes, or it takes 39 no's to find one yes. Yeah. So it's just changing your perspective of the event, of whatever you're looking at right now. Look at it differently. And all of a sudden you say, well, gosh, I'm attached to actually, people saying no to me, because I know I need 39 no's to get to one yes, or whatever the numbers would be. And I've told people when they're prospecting, well, don't you feel bad when somebody hangs up on you? I said, are you kidding me? I have a goal to make 12 contacts per hour. If somebody hangs up on me, that means they didn't take 5 minutes of my time before they told me no, which means I could get to another yes faster. I should call them back and tell them thank you for hanging up, because that made me more efficient.
Right.
But that's just a way of looking at it.
Awesome.
And that's how I would remain detached.
Awesome.
Play a different tape in your mind.
Awesome. Love it. Greg, you know what? This is one of my friends and one of our agents here, Christian Colicchio. By the way, proud of this young man. If you guys are not following him out there, he's 22, 23 years old, selling a lot of houses. And get this, Greg, travels to one place out of state every single month.
Nice.
So talk about a life by design, right?
Yeah, I love it.
So he says, if you were dropped in Los Angeles and forced to move your business, how quickly would you be able to replicate your current level of business volume? And what are the first three things that you would do to get the ball rolling?
So I think it'd take me about 90 days. So the first thing that I would do is I would come in and I'd hire an outsourcer to go through and take all the old expireds for the last 4 years and figure out who's not on the market, and who's not sold. I would start there by generating that data, and then I would go and then I would look in the MLS and I would figure out what communities have at least an 8% turnover rate, which means if they had 500 properties in the community, I would like to see 800 of them turning over at all times. And then I would go to like a Kohl's directory and I'd get the numbers for all of those communities. So I would know where the high turnover communities are, and I would go through the expireds and I'd get on the phone. Let me tell you, I'm not really concerned. I don't need to know the market.
Right.
I just need to know how to ask the right questions when I get a live person on the phone, and that's, why are you selling? Where are you moving to? Those questions that we know. So I think it would take 90 days.
Greg, let's role play real fast.
Okay.
Just let's keep it basic. Let's keep it simple. I know we're blessed. To you and I, this is like common.
Sure.
But this show is reaching a lot of people basically all over the world now. And I don't think a lot of people really understand what prospecting sounds like. Run me through a basic phone conversation.
Sure. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Danny. This is Danny. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is Danny. How can I help you?
Hey, Danny, it's Greg Harrelson with Century 21 over here in Myrtle Beach. Just wanted to give you a quick call. I'm not sure you're aware, but we just sold another home over on XYZ Street. Had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and it actually sold for $479,000. And I just wanted to give you a call to see, who do you know that might be interested in selling in your community?
Greg, I'm a little busy right now, but to be honest with you, I don't really know anybody right now.
You don't know anybody? Okay. Well, just curious. How long have you lived in the community?
It's been about 8 years now.
Been 8 years. Wow. Where did you move from?
I actually got a job transfer from New York City, and my wife had some family here in California, so we decided to come.
So you're from the East Coast, and that's probably a good shift from east to the west. So, I'm just kind of curious, if you were ever to move, where would you go next?
It's kind of funny you mentioned this, but my wife and I, and we're not ready right now, obviously, but my wife and I were thinking about moving, maybe back to New York.
Back to New York?
Yeah. We miss the cold.
You miss the cold, yeah. I don't hear a lot of people saying that, but there's some freaky people out there. I guess you're one of them. Just kind of curious. I mean, when do you think that's going to be?
Oh, I don't know, Greg. I mean, it's been a thought, but we haven't really taken any action on it.
Sure. Well, I tell you what. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, what has to happen here in LA for you to actually put a little bit more thought to moving out to the East Coast?
Well, that's a great question, Greg. I mean, I guess I'd maybe need to see how much my house was worth and, just put pen to paper, I guess.
Sure, yeah, and I can help you with that. I tell you what, I understand that you might not really be interested in moving right this moment, but the question that I have is, I mean, what, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the likely that you'll actually do it within the next 12 months?
If I had it my way within the next 12 months, I'd probably say it's a 9. It's a 9.5. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, so I think it's going to happen probably within the next 6 months.
Yeah, got it. Well, I don't know if you're aware, but that it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to sell a home in this particular area. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
No? Yeah, so realistically, would you like to actually have your property sold within the next 6 months, or would you like to just start at that time?
Well, gosh, I haven't thought about that, but it'd be great to. I mean, if we're gonna do it, and I need to talk to my wife, of course.
Understood.
But it'd be great to have it sold by then.
Sure. Well, why don't we do this? I tell you what, I'm going to be in the area in the next couple of days. Why don't we just go ahead and get together? How about tomorrow? I think it's Thursday. Would 2 o'clock work for you, or would maybe 4 o'clock be better?
Wow. Hey, Greg, you're good, by the way, because I wasn't even planning on doing this, but I guess it would be in the afternoon sometime.
Okay,
maybe.
So how 2 or 4?
Good job. 4.
Okay, 4 o'clock. I'll tell you, I'll see you there. Now, I may give you a call tomorrow before, on my way or before I get there, just to ask you a few more questions. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in the schedule. I'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Sound good?
Sound fantastic.
Good.
So for our listeners, listen. I want you to go back and replay that over and over and over again and listen to what you're kind of listening to. Listen to the calmness. Listen to the leadership. Listen to the control of the conversation. Listen to the fact that he was the salesperson, not the seller. Listen to the detachment. It's funny, like, Greg, I heard your detachment over the phone. Like, you didn't really care what I said. Whatever I said, right, you were just going to make it fit in what it is that you're trying to accomplish if it was to fit,
Yes, that is right.
And when you hear all that, people, I want you to understand that that's years of practice. So the question is, if you ever want to be that good, that confident, that powerful, such a powerful force that people literally are attracted to you, when will you start putting in the work? That's the only question you have to answer right now, I think. Would you agree, Greg?
I agree. That's great advice.
Awesome. Great job, by the way.
Thank you.
Here's I just lost my little screen here. Bear with me. Here's a question from Ryan Alter. Ryan Alter is from Integral Real Estate Services out in Morgan Hill. What is the best mindset hack you've got to help you through, past 100 plus deals a year? Mindset hack. Not sure what he means by that, but, I guess what's going on up here?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that he's, at some certain level and he's wanting to really topple over. What I say the danger zone is when you're around that 80 to 90 deal transaction level, because you probably have one assistant, maybe you have one assistant and a buyer's agent and you're doing some listings. But in order to get to and you're working hard. Like 80 deals to me is miserable because you're working hard. You're not at the place where you can actually build out the infrastructure. So, and you're just you're grinding. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do 150 deals than it is to do 80 deals. Because when you're doing 150 deals, you have the financials to actually set up your infrastructure properly.
Right.
So then you can start figuring out that, or so you can focus all your attention on income generating activities. So to me, the mindset hack is this, is that you've got to draw a line on a piece of paper, and on the left side of the line you need to put income servicing, on the right side of the line you need to put income generating. Write down all the things that you do that's income generating and all the things that you currently do that's income servicing, and declare you're never going to do a servicing task again. That's when you'll go to the next level.
Love it. That is a great answer. I've got a question from Robert Watkins. Robert Watkins asks, Greg, what are one or two elements, tangible or intangible, allowed for you to scale your business to that size?
I'd say intangible is the ability to delegate, the ability to delegate, to be able to go to this size, to be able to do this type of business. You've got to be a great delegator. But delegating has little to do with just telling people what to do and then actually watching over them. You've got to tell them what you need done, and then you've got to allow them to do it and allow them to take ownership and do it their way.
Yeah.
Don't try to then delegate it and then micromanage and control it, because you might as well just do it. So to me, you got to be a great delegator, but you've got to trust who you're delegating to and let them do it, and understand, who cares how they do it as long as it's legal and ethical? Who cares how they do it as long as they get us to the desired destination?
Right.
So it's about delegation to get to another level.
And that's big time about trust.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can trust anybody else until you first trust yourself.
Yeah, and we got to get over that. Where if no one can do it better than you, then you're screwed.
Right.
You're done.
Yeah. I think everybody can do it better than me.
I know they can. I know they can do it better than me, I should say. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Two more.
Me and you can't even figure out the computer.
No, you guys should have actually seen us. We were here for like 20 minutes. Like, what is going on here? You know. All right, two more. Brianna Gap, which was actually one of the guests on the show, so it's good to see her asking questions, always saying coachable. What's your best advice about delegating for a person that is a tad of a control freak like myself? We kind of just touched on this, but any advice?
Yeah, you got to get over it. And what you do is you got to get over it, but you got to get over the fact that it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you know, a control freak is like, they want it to be perfect, and I get it. There's a lot of integrity with that. There's a lot of acceptance of responsibility. So it's very honorable to be like a kind of a control freak in that sense, because you're really wanting the standards to be high. But you got to understand that there are plenty of people that are capable of maintaining or elevating the standards that you know, of whatever task that you have them. You've got to just allow them. And I think in order for a control freak to allow them, they've got to remove the ego from the relationship.
Awesome.
Because some people, it makes them feel good to feel like they're in control.
Yeah. Get
over that and get your feel good somewhere else.
You know what, Greg, and get your feel good somewhere else. I love that. I actually just did a video on that, about how we try to like fulfill what we need inside, right, through different circumstances.
Yes.
So last question, and this is from a wonderful, wonderful lady, on track to do 100 deals this year, Apple Morel. Simple. What keeps you hungry?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So, you know, I basically set an intention years ago that I was going to change the industry. Okay. Now, when I said that, I knew that I was going to I had to change the industry in my local market first. And when I said change the industry, what I learned, and we all know about our industry, is we're not the most respected industry, right, you know, in the eyes of the consumer. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm in this career. I want to be a respected professional. So what I did is I said, my intention, my why is going to be to change the industry. And what I had to do in my mind in order to accomplish that is I had to raise the standards of how I would perform. I had to raise the standards of how my team would perform, my agents and my company would perform. And then the way I would change the industry is by the competitors in my own market. They would either have to raise their own standards or get out of my way.
Business.
Get out of the business.
Yep.
And some people probably got out of the business, and a lot of them raised their standards. And in the end, the consumer was the one that was served best. And so I just don't feel like that's where my job lost the title of job and where my job became my mission. And so when you can make this profession your mission and you can identify really why are you really wanting to be top at your game and it becomes your mission, then you never have really much stress and disappointment when it comes to your mission. We just have that when it comes to our jobs.
Yep. Greg, final thought. Are you reading or have you read Second Chance by Robert Kiyosaki?
I have not read Second Chance.
You get on that one. That's a good one. Yeah. Second Chance by Robert Kiyosaki. And I only bring that up, guys, because for those of you that are listening on the podcast, go to the YouTube show. It's on youtube.com/Danny Morel. And I want you to visualize, Greg, it's so awesome to think that, like, we literally have the same picture of Steve Jobs. Right?
That's right.
You check that out, right?
Yep.
And I see a little Jack Welch, which I have Jack Welch back there.
Yep.
I see John Maxwell back there. I see a lot of the same books that we have. They're which is freaking awesome.
That is so funny. I see that.
Yeah, love it. Final thoughts, Greg.
Oh wow! My final thoughts from today is just, you've got to believe in yourself. If you're a real estate agent and you want to take it to the next level, then you've just got to believe that you're capable. It's kind of like what I said before. Breakthroughs do not require you to change. It only requires you to change your patterns. And another term for patterns is change your habits. So a slight little shift in your habits will have an enormous impact on your production. And let me just leave you with that.
Awesome. Greg, listen, if there's ever anything that I can do to help you, your team, your community, whatever it is, I would be honored, and I'm here to help, because I want to say this podcast, this show is going to change lives. I'm proud of what we did together here today, and I just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for reaching out. This is awesome.
It really was. It was a lot of fun. So for everybody, that's a wrap. This is episode number 10. If you enjoyed this and any of our shows, make sure to give us a rating on iTunes. We would really appreciate it. It helps to expand our reach. You got to actually give it the 5 or the 6 stars, the maximum amount of stars, and actually write a review. Tune in next week. Episode number 11 is going to be fantastic. And until then, as always, be more, do more, and go out and expect to have a lot more. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.